Uh, Hello fellow YouTubers. It's Pitch is going dark. It's Saturday, September 29, the penultimate day of September, and it's been a very warm and humid day, and that is not conducive to my overall well-being. Now, we've had some rain and 2 or 3 storms, which isn't really conducive to our dog Bailey well-being because the noise upset them, the thunder. I can understand they've got sensitive ears, whereas I haven't got sensitive ears. I'm going to make up these, what's the names, a couple of hands to my ears, a couple of hands. And I haven't, it hasn't been a good breathing day, but I am somewhat bloated, which means my stomach's a bit distended, and Susan Rose happened to make a mention of that a few uploads ago, probably during the past week, and she said that it could be that, so I checked it out. I did some research, and yes, very much, Susan, it can affect your breathing because the distension or the bloating presses on your diaphragm, puts pressure on the diaphragm, and you have problem breathing, which is what I don't need. So I'm not sure how this new med's going. Seems to be okay. I think it's as good as the other two, Pulmicort and Ultibro, so I'm quite happy to have the 3 medications in the one application. Yes. Well, early this afternoon my wife called me out into the garden because to see all her flowers are out in bloom. Well, most of them are out in bloom. And she asked me to take some photos, and I did. So I'm going to bung those 33 photos, which I have doctored up a little bit, make them look a little bit better. And that'll probably go for a minute or so, although I could probably dock it down to a second and only go for 33 seconds or something. Anyhow, you can have a look at those and tell me what you think. I may do a reading as well. I was going to do another video, and I think I will do it because I like to make people laugh, but you all know that, you know. And it's called a few things I don't give an F about. But of course I will actually use the F word in the video, and I will use the F word quite often. But not in this video. Otherwise, I would warn you. There would be a warning. Yes. So today is the AFL, Australian Football League Grand Final, which I'm not interested in at all. I'm not interested in AFL. I'm not interested in soccer. See, that's something else I don't give an F about. I don't give AFL and soccer. But anyhow, we will tackle those subjects in another video or videos. Now I'm up to 694 subscribers, so a little bit of luck I might get up to 700. But TubeBuddy has still made a mistake on my uploads. They say I need another 16 or something to reach 900. Well, I already have 916 uploads. I just wish they'd get it right because I want to get my little milestone certificate. Okay, well that's enough ramble on and rattling on and prattling on and flapping your gums. What about a little bit of a reading, eh? A little bit of a reading. Yes, my friend Jeremy. He was standing just inside the doorway now, looking at and listening to the deluge, watching the water cascade down the tiled roof of David and Ruth's house, the sheer volume of water overwhelming the guttering as it desperately tried but failed to accommodate the runoff. And he mumbled, "What a waste. What a waste of water." Ah, he didn't say what a waste of water at all. What a bloody waste. Jeremy and Doreen had considered installing a tank, but when Jeremy crunched the numbers he realised how expensive that so-called free water was. Sure, the precipitation itself was free, but in order to contain it cost a lot of money, turning something that was free into something that cost hundreds of times more equivalent from the mains. Doreen had argued with him that that just couldn't be true, as others would too. But when he wrote it all out for her, she had to agree he was right. I never considered that at all, she had said. And I guess all those who have installed a tank have never considered it either. But that's what happens when people get brainwashed into thinking they're saving money and the environment along with it. God! How Jeremy hated and was sick and tired of hearing that word. Environment. That and carbon footprint for ozone layer as well. Jeremy was all for doing the right thing, but he was fed up with all the campaigns that patronise the masses about having a conscience for all the things they should need to have a conscience about. Like it was with National Clean-up Day. Come one, come all, roll up, get your hand dirty, all you folk who do the right thing 365 days a year, and clean up the mess of those who don't and don't give a damn. And they do. Why? Because they care enough to do something about it. Even though they know it's a waste of time, because the people who put it there in the first place will keep on putting it there again ad infinitum. Jeremy reckons only one way to put an end to the little problem forever. A bounty. Put a price on every scrap of carelessly discarded rubbish, no matter how big or small, and the problem will be fixed overnight. Everything from cigarette butts to car bodies wouldn't have a chance to pollute or scar the environment. The people would pay for picking them up or a spotter's fee. Yes, indeed, there was no doubt in Jeremy's mind whatsoever that once you put a price on something, people change the way they look at that something in an instant. Like it used to be with glass soft drink bottles. If it was indeed a rarity to find any of those lying about, it's true. Because there's still lots of them depository funds on glass soft drink bottles. As Jeremy stood watching his neighbour's gutters overflow, he was suddenly mindful of three things. The rain gauge he was holding in his right hand rather than being where it should be in recording this rare rain event, and how wet and cold he was. Lifting the rain gauge to eye level, he read out loud the reading, 38 millimetres. Not bad. Not bad at all. The rain had been pelting down now for about 5 or 6 minutes, so he poured all but the last 5 litres from the gauge. Close enough was good enough. Covering his head once again with his cardigan, he made a dash forward and slid the rain gauge into the bracket, then about face and made haste towards the patio cover. The torrential rain saturating his face, clothes, bare legs, and running down both arms as he clutched the cardigan to his head. Stepping under the shelter of the patio cover for the first time, the smooth soles of his slip-ons almost went out from underneath him, and he cursed. Flailing his arms in a frantic but successful attempt to right himself. Then he cursed again. He cursed again as he kicked off his slip-ons, and cursed again as one on his right foot shot straight up and impacted hard against the patio roof, leaving in its wake a small dent that he expected she would see and no doubt question him about on some other day of just another day. And he cursed again. He was well and truly pissed off now. But he always was when he did impulsive things that backfired. As much with himself as anything else. Bastard! He yelled. Bastard, bastard, bastard! He bent down, picked up the slip-on, then threw it hard to ground, then picked it up and did it again. There! That'll teach you to fool around with me, you frigging mongrel of a thing. Jeremy knew what he'd just done was plain ridiculous. But he'd done it before with other things in the past, time and time again. Not only because it felt good, because it helped to relieve his anger. His wife was always telling him that he had a bad temper. and he knew she was right. But he reckoned it was better to let it out and be done with it rather than bottle it up and carry on for hours after the event. Well, that was his story anyway, and he was sticking with it. He used to do the same thing when playing golf. That and other things too. One of the reasons he gave the game away. But of course, he would. Most of the time, as it was with the slip-on, he'd throw the club hard to ground after duffing a shot, which was often, and curse out loud for all it was worth. Sometimes he'd hurl the club farther than he'd hit the ball, and let all know within hearing distance just how he felt. Occasionally, not often, but now and then, he would wrap the shaft of the club around the trunk of a tree whose root had stymied what he had thought was an easy chip onto the fairway. And he had topped the ball and hit the root instead. But the incident that put an end to his unremarkable, aggravating but nonetheless passion for the game as an A-grade hacker came about from something as simple as a slice. All golfers either slice or hook the ball to some degree. The fact every golfer would not deny. Some only now and again. Some more often. Some more often than not. While a few are chronic. And Jeremy was a chronic slicer. He had bought numerous books and videotapes in an attempt to cure himself of the innocuous habit, thinking that if he read and watched and listened to those he knew, he'd be able to fix the problem. But no matter how hard he tried to do what he was able to conjure up so vividly in his mind while playing, he failed. But all that changed when he decided to seek professional assistance from the golf pro, who was able to teach him how to hook the ball. Round to the left, yeah? Telling him that a slice was caused by an overpowering right hand. And in Jeremy's case, that and swinging inside or out with an open club face. And it worked. He still had his problems, of course. Duffing and shanking and topping the ball on occasions. But he could live with that. But slicing the ball was all but a thing of the past. So much so that Jeremy was no longer able to purposely slice himself out of trouble. But hook? Hell, Jeremy could hook the ball around just about any obstruction. And he could live with that, too. On the day Jeremy played his last game, he had to play the back nine. Something he didn't like doing because of all the lakes. For it seemed the water had a particular fascination for his balls. He would have much preferred to play the front nine because it was free of such hazards. But with the increase in daily club competition since the new pro had taken over the reins, he had no other choice. Another reason he was fed up with the game. Too many people on his tail and too few choices. When Jeremy arrived at the 10th tee, there was a group of 4 preparing themselves, slipping on gloves, gathering tees and balls, checking their clubs, selecting clubs, and Jeremy fart-arsing around as if they had all the time in the world, and Jeremy expected he was in for a long wait. But when they noticed he was late, they invited him to play through. Very kind of them, and something he did even though Jeremy didn't like an audience. Always afraid of making a fool of himself. But he didn't. Surprising himself in being complimented by the 4 for a well-timed ride off the sweet spot smack with his 5-wood long and straight down the middle of the fairway. Thanking the 4 and not wasting any time, he made his way from the tee at a brisk pace and feeling somewhat euphoric. A feeling he maintained for the next 4 holes, parring 3 and bogeying 1 with the best golf he had ever played. Until the 5th. The 5th at his home course at a par 5 with a dog leg that shot off to the right about 100 metres before the well-bunkered large green. And a hole he had lost countless balls to the water of the 2 lakes bordering the right of the fairway. And always intimidated him. Standing on the tee and looking at the wide long and straight as a dry expanse of verdant fairway that preceded the dogleg, he initially thought that because he was hitting the ball so well, he might tee off with his driver. But then decided to be conservative and hit a 5-iron. And he wasn't disappointed with the outcome. The ball split the fairway, coming to a rest some 40 metres short of the berm that separated the two lakes. A berm is a flat area between a parapet and a moat. That's what a berm is. Just in case you wonder what a berm was. A long hit for a middle iron, and one he had every right to be over the moon about. Simply because he had been the greatest shot he had ever hit. It would also be the third last shot he would ever hit. When he reached the ball, he had counted 202 strides. Long strides, too. And the realisation of what he had just done, and the ease in which he had done it, absolutely gobsmacked him. And he thought, for the first time I have a real chance of parring this hole. He was tempted at first to go for the green with his trusty 5-wood. But as he stood behind the ball for the second time, he decided to err on the side of caution and go with a 6-iron, and set himself up for a bump and run onto the green with a long iron. As he took his stance and addressed the ball, he had absolutely no thought of the water to his immediate right, and only a trace of one of the water ahead. But why should he? He was on a roll. After waggling the club several times as he checked his alignment, he lowered the head of the club to the ground just behind the ball, and without further hesitation let rip. And the rest, as is often said, is history. The ball shot high and hard right and plopped into the first lake, the hazard. An apt name, Jeremy thought. He was angry, but he managed to stay in control, realising that it was but one bad shot and he could finish the hole with a double bogey. He'd done worse before, far worse. Wheeling his buggy over the edge of the second cut, he slotted the 6-iron into the bag, measured off 2 club lengths with his driver and dropped the second ball in readiness for his 4th shot. The ball was sitting nicely on the coarse grass of the rough, so he decided without hesitation to go for broke and use the 5-wood. Nothing ventured, nothing gained, for who knows, maybe he might hit the ball as sweetly as the 5-iron off the tee and make the green. Stranger things had happened before. But not this time. This time the Jeremy of old hit the ball with an inside to out off the toe of the club, low arcing slice smack bang in the middle of the second lake. Then all hell broke loose. Screaming with rage, he speared the 5-wood into the bag, then instantly lifted the bag-buggy combo high above his head where, just for a moment, he staggered and reeled, steadied himself, then heavy-footed his way to the edge of the bank of the lake with every intention of hurling the lot into the water. For a handful of seconds he stood so puffing and panting, like Atlas holding up the world, before his rage subsided and common sense prevailed, and he lowered his burden to the ground, rested briefly, then trudged across fairways and tees to the parking lot, then home. As Jeremy stood his ground looking at the slip-on, he suddenly became aware just how easy it was to become so involved with doing something that you can lose track of everything else going on about you, like it was with the rain. It was still pelting down, but he hadn't heard it at all during the brief period of his maniacal behaviour, nor the pain from his punctured tongue, which must have been the result of unwittingly seeking his broken tooth. Matter of fact, he was doing that very thing now, and it was bleeding, and he cursed again. But there was more. His ears were burning. The ache above his left eye had returned, and he was soaked to the skin, cold, had just shivered, and if he didn't get out of his wet clothes, he'd probably end up with hypothermia. Jeremy was always pessimistic about things like that. Always thinking the worst, Jeremy was. But then, and of course, maybe he had every right to on this shit of a morning, unlike any other morning of just another day. Oh, poor Jeremy. That's a true story about the golf. It is. A lot of this is true because it's me. But it's been extrapolated and fictional. You know, stretch. But no, that's exactly what happened on the golf course. Never forget it. I never played golf since. I want to thank you for watching and for listening. Please keep those subs coming. I want to get to 700 plus. I need 6 more to get 700, and I get a new milestone certificate. And until next time, which will probably be tomorrow, but I don't know, I might have a day off tomorrow because the Rugby League Grand Final's on, and I will watch the Rugby League Grand Final, but it's probably on late. So who knows what will happen. So until next time, bye for now. Getting cloudy again. Yeah, getting very cloudy. Probably going to rain again, I think.